Welcome back to the podcast. I'm David Paulides, and as always, we're dealing with the deeply unusual, the unnerving, and the unexplainable. Today, we've got two cases that fit right into the chilling pattern we've been tracking for over a decade. Before we get to the disappearances, however, we have to talk about a very real threat slowly marching across this country. A threat that ties directly into the strange lethality of the American wilderness. This is chronic wasting disease. Now, I know some of you ask, Dave, why talk about CWD? Because it is a prion disease. It is an almost immortal, transmissible, and 100% fatal neurological nightmare. Think of it as mad cow disease, but targeting the deer, the elk, and the antelope. It is insidious. It spreads through saliva, through urine, through contamination on the grass, remaining viable in the soil for years. With CWD now confirmed in over 26 states, it is a silent plague. When you pack 1,000 elk into a small feed ground in Wyoming, it becomes an absolutely catastrophic biological test tube for infection. The decision to keep those animals confined, despite the risk, is an act of pure legislative stupidity. If you want a disease to spread like wildfire, you give it those conditions. But here is the part that keeps me awake at night. The official language is always the same. Do not eat infected animals. Followed by, but there has never been a documented case of animal to human transmission. That is the same denial we heard decades ago regarding mad cow disease. The human equivalent is Creutzfeldt-Jakob disease, an onset that can take 20 to 30 years. It presents just like Alzheimer's or dementia. 90% of the time, the death is signed off as dementia, sometimes, I believe, purposely. Prions are nearly impossible to kill. They resist extreme heat, chemicals, and even most sterilization techniques. There is something fundamentally unnatural about the lethality of this protein. It's just one more unseen, nearly immortal threat hiding in the deep woods we investigate. Now, let's move to our first genuine missing 411 case. This comes from Barnett, Missouri, right in the thick of the ominous Lake of the Ozarks region, an area where strange things seem to be drawn. The missing person is a young man named Richard Hess. He was just 25 years old when he disappeared on December 5th, 2010. He was visiting his cousin's house when the event occurred. Not long after his cousin left, a massive, roaring fire erupted. Neighbors rushed over, but the intensity of the flame was so severe it drove them back immediately. Richard's Chevy Blazer was sitting right out front. Firefighters contained the blaze, but Richard didn't show up. His car was still there, but Richard was gone. The sheriff brought in cadaver dogs, and they found nothing. But here is a critical pattern we see. If Richard escaped alive, why did he run? He had no criminal history. No report was ever released about illegal activity, like a drug lab found in the wreckage. And if he was inside, standard dogs are rarely trained to locate incinerated remains, which have a unique odor. This means one of two things. Richard wasn't there, or the search of the debris failed completely. This man, in the middle of a cold December night, vanishes completely from his own vehicle, leaving behind a burning structure, and is never seen again. He has not been found, and he is not listed as deceased. You have to ask, was Richard running from the fire, or was he running from something else entirely? Something he saw inside the house that ignited the blaze. Could a brief, terrifying dimensional rift have opened, forcing him into a desperate flight? We move on to the next case. This one is a world-class head-scratcher and involves a decorated military man. This is absolutely a top 50 case in terms of intrigue and sheer mystique. The missing man is John Fitzpatrick, 52, a retired Navy SEAL Chief Petty Officer. Missing with him is Jin Fang, 47, from China. They vanished on July 30th, 2023, deep in the Southern California desert. John was the best of the best, a survival expert, a master parachutist, the kind of man who had everything together, who understood the lethality of the desert. They were touring the high heat areas of Joshua Tree and the Salton Sea. The last contact Jen had with her friend was on July 21st. Both were eventually reported missing, which led to the discovery of John's blue Toyota Tacoma on August 8th in Harper's Canyon. The truck was described by authorities using only 2 words, damaged and disabled. We have never been told the extent of the damage. The key lesson of survival, one John knew, is you do not leave your vehicle in 117-degree heat. But they left. Weeks later, on October 4th, John's skeletal remains were found 4 miles from the truck. Weeks after that, Jen's remains were found another 2.5 miles from John. How can you rule out foul play when the bodies are skeletonized and the cause of death is officially ruled undetermined? This is a contradiction that demands answers. The Navy SEAL, a man trained for extreme scenarios, acted against every principle of survival. He walked miles in the heat. He did not signal. He did not travel at night. The behavior is completely illogical. This is a commonality in missing 411 cases. Experts suddenly exhibiting non-expert, panicked behavior. Now, consider Jen. She was from China, and her decision to verify John's military background was unusual. Was she asked, or perhaps even sent, to gather information from a high-level retired Navy SEAL? Was the disabled truck a staged event to lure them out, perhaps by agents who then vanished? Or, as some reports suggest, was the area near the Salton Sea the cause? That region is notorious for decades of unverified, unsettling reports of bizarre phenomena. Could the intense energy from a sudden dimensional rift have caused temporary catastrophic disorientation in John, making him abandon his core survival training? He was an expert, yet both bodies were found miles apart, acting against all reason. The desert swallowed an expert and his companion, and the official explanation is silence and a sealed report. We have 2 cases, one in the Missouri forest, one in the California desert. They share the common thread of absolute, unexplained vanishing acts near a vehicle. An event occurred at that site that defied human logic. When law enforcement quickly shuts down a case involving a decorated military veteran and an international figure, you must start looking for the unreasonable. Was it espionage? Or was it an unknown, powerful entity, perhaps an actual cryptid or a highly localized predatory power of the wilderness that we simply don't have the technology to track? These are not simple lost persons. These are confounding cases that remind us that the American wilderness harbors secrets far darker and more dangerous. If you are in a CWD zone, be smart. Get your animals tested. Be aware of that very real biological danger. And if you know of a case that fits the rigorous missing 411 criteria, a sudden disappearance where no rational human factor accounts for the circumstances, send it to me. Missing411@yahoo.com. The forest and the desert do not give up their secrets easily, but we will continue to document the pattern. Until next time, be safe out there.